G'day, it's Galey for my blog and a little bit of a sports wrap-up locally and, a little bit nationally as well. Let's start off with the Australians in the cricket against the South Africans, getting beaten in the second one-day match against the South Africans. Graham Smith, the captain, came out before the game and said that they've done a little bit of work on their first round defeat and were keen to get out there and bowl very well. I think the Australians were in a bit of trouble at 5 for about 19, so they had to fight their way out of it. In the end, that was way too much for them to actually catch up. And the South Africans, I think, got the score in about 27 overs, so they did pretty well, did it pretty easily. So it's 1-1 in the series of 5. Having a look at AFL on the weekend, well, there was a couple of upsets. We'd have to say Port Adelaide and West Coast. West Coast weren't expected to get close to Port Adelaide. Everyone's talking up Port this year, but West Coast won by 50 points. Kerr was best on ground. I think he kicked about 4 goals and got plenty of the ball, so did well in the midfield as well. So they'd be very happy over in the West. Richmond nearly caused an upset against Geelong down at Skill Park, but Geelong, of course, were too good in that last quarter. Steve Johnson having a bit of control in the forward line in that last quarter. There was another upset, and I've just forgotten what it was. It was on the top of my mind before. Oh, that's right. The Sydney Swans did very well against Hawthorn. Hawthorn came out and kicked a few goals early. Sydney ended up playing a very good game against Hawthorn, and the reigning premiers have not won yet this season. So it'll be interesting to see if they can come out next week and do a little bit better. That's a little bit of a wrap-up with the AFL at the moment. Just wanted to touch on those upsets. Going across to the NRL as far as upsets, well, everyone's upsetting Manly, the reigning premiers there. We all thought it was going to happen again, that they were going to be invincible. They won the Challenge Cup overseas, came back, a little bit of off-field trouble, and then that's translated into bad performances in their 4 games so far. 4 and zip, it doesn't look too good at all for them, or I should say zip and 4. Who will have the Seagulls next week? Well, whoever does, they might have to play very well, because I think they'd be spewing down there at Manly. The Jetstar Gold Coast Titans, we've got to mention those guys. What a great effort. They've gone down to Melbourne. It's the graveyard. I think Melbourne have only lost 3 in the last 3 years down there. They've done ever so well down there, Melbourne, and made it very awkward and uncomfortable for sides to go down there and get a win. But the Jetstar Gold Coast Titans went down there without Scott Prince. It's been a terrible place for us to visit in the last 2 years. But we've gone down there and we've not only won, we've defended really well, and we've won by a fair margin. Fantastic effort in the halves. Matt Rogers has been very good the last 2 weeks. We've talked about Preston Campbell being brilliant, but not talked up Matt as much probably as Preston, but both of them have combined very well, and Matt Rogers' kicking game has been superb. I'm a bit worried about Preston Campbell with his calf at the moment. It looks like he might be out anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, which is a shame, because the guy is in fantastic form. Even in the first round when he was playing fullback, he was in great form, and to fill in for Princey since he's had his hamstring, he's been fantastic at halfback, and we know why he's won a Dally M and won a premiership in that position. I think sometimes people do forget, and of course it was a team effort. Everyone's doing their job. Chalky's coming off the bench and he's doing well as the utility. The forwards are going really well and making room, and that future of the club. On the left side, we've got Essie Tonga that's moved into the centres, and Kevin Gordon. Now, they've played a lot of football together in the under-20s. They love playing together, and they're now teaming well together in the seniors, and hopefully that they can stay in that position together, or those positions together, and continue to do really well. So fingers crossed as far as the Titans go with Preston's recovery, and of course that all the players that played so well against Melbourne can do the same again against the Cowboys this week. 2 huge road trips. They've won 1. If they get the second one and then come back to Skill Park on the 17th of April against the Raiders, it's looking good for the first part of the season for us to be off to a great start. At the moment, the Titans are sitting second on the ladder. All good there. Just flipping back to the AFL, the Gold Coast team actually played their first game on the weekend in the TAC Cup, which is the under-18 competition. The Eastern Rangers, a Victorian club that's been there for a long time, came up. They were too good good for our young boys, but I think our fellas have actually seen how the action works, and they're going down to Melbourne next week to take on another side down there. And I'm sure with the one game under their belt, Guy McKenna might get the boys up, fingers crossed, over the line. But it'll be a great experience for them travelling down there, and they are the future of the club, I guess, now that we've been given the licence. So a little bit of a wrap of what's happened in sport over the weekend, and looking forward to seeing what's happening with the preview on Friday going into next weekend's sport, and look forward to being back on Monday to give it a bit of a wrap-up.